Welcome, everyone. Uh, Good morning or good evening or afternoon, depending on where you're from. Welcome to From Setup to Success, Essential Tactics for Software Asset Management. So we wanted to bring you guys this series as kind of an on-ramp to software asset management. So if you're a brand new customer, I haven't activated the product, or I'm a new customer, I've done some things, but I'm not quite sure what anything does. Or even if you're someone who's thinking about getting software asset management, you are in the right place. We are going to be going over just that topic. But before we begin, just wanted to make sure that we were aware that this presentation may contain some forward-looking statements and that those forward-looking statements are covered under our safe harbor. A little bit of housekeeping. So this webinar is going to be 1 hour. We have some things to cover. And because we have a lot of things to cover in that time, participants' audio and video will be disabled. Please post your questions using the Q&A function at any time during the presentation because we have some experts on this call as well. Speaking of which, let's meet them. So we have Sean Walker, Randy Scrapper, and Debiota Das. They are Rangers within ServiceNow, focusing on ITAM. You guys may know these gents from their Ask a Ranger series, where they post a lot of content around getting hardware and software asset management set up. I am also a part of that team. I'm Ben Mills. I'll be taking you through today's session, and also we have Karen Dean, who is from Outbound Product Management. So these are all very knowledgeable gents. So please post your questions in Q&A, and they will be sure to get with you. All right, so what are we going to be talking about today? What's this journey look like for us today? So we're going to be covering a few things. First of all, we're going to be covering the installation, right? What are the appropriate plugins? What do those plugins do? What is a good sequence to install those plugins? What do I get when we install those plugins? We are going to be going through that process. And once we get the installation done, we're going to be taking a look at configuration. So what are some of the settings that we should be turning on or off to get the optimal use out of software asset management professional? Once we've covered those two topics, we're going to do a look at the CMDB and some discovery considerations. Now, I can already hear folks in the audience rolling their eyes. Ben, again with the CMDB. Yes, we will always talk about the CMDB. In fact, may we always talk about the CMDB when we're having a conversation about ITAM, because our success is just very tied to that process. Once we've covered these three baseline activities, the next thing that we want to talk about is, hey, onward to success. We have this baseline in place. Now we are ready to plot our course. So I will say that this webinar is going to focus on getting that baseline success. However, I want you guys to stay tuned, because next month we are going to be having part 2 of this session, and we are going to focus just on that. I've got set up, I'm configured, I have my discovery sources in place, my CMDB is healthy. How do I start plotting my course to be successful in software asset management? So that may go through some things like staffing and in processes. What does crawl, walk, and run look like for software asset management? It's going to be a fantastic session. So I hope you guys come back in a month for that one. Okay, so getting started with software asset management professional, we will be spending the lion's share of our time looking at these two domains: installing software asset management and then configuring software asset management. So without further ado, let's begin. Okay, so I purchased software asset management. I need to get the plugin installed. We get questions about this all the time. Ben, I've gone to the ServiceNow store. I can't find software asset management in the ServiceNow store. Well, there's a reason for that. And that's because we request the software asset management plugin via support. So whoever in your organization has their credentials for support will need to go in, request to activate a plugin, select their target instance, select their plugin, and a time window to do the installation. This is where we get Software Asset Management Pro, and then that's where we get it installed. Um, Once we have that done, we need to request SaaS license management. I want to take some time here because in product success, I know my fellow Rangers, we run into this all the time, right? So Ben, I've installed Software Asset Management Professional, but I don't see the features for SaaS license management. What's going on? Well, that's because SaaS license management isn't necessarily installed with the SAM Pro plugin. You actually need to go into the ServiceNow store to request SaaS license management and do the install, right? So SaaS license management is what's going to help you to be able to leverage the integration with those SSO providers like Okta and Azure AD to bring in that user information to do your license management. So do not forget, once we install the software asset management plugin via support, we need to go to the ServiceNow store to get SaaS license management. All right, so if you are a customer, and I'm just talking to our customers who are migrating from ITSM SAM or SAM Foundations, there are some steps that you need to consider when moving over, right? So if you are net new and you haven't been in SAM Foundations, this isn't for you. But for the customers who are using ITSM SAM or SAM Foundations, I just want to talk to you for just a moment. So there's a few things that's going to happen as we migrate over from ITSM SAM. We're going to get some new table labels. So in ITSM SAM, the ALM license table used to be known as the software license table. It is now going to be called the software entitlement table in SAM Pro. The ALM entitlement user table used to be the user entitlement label in ITSM SAM. It'll now be known as user allocations. And then the ALM entitlement asset was originally known as the device entitlement. It'll now be known as device allocations. So just keep that in mind. There's also going to be a few disabled functions in ITSM SAM once we move over to SAM Pro. License and software counters, right? That was that scheduled job that triggered to count your a software up from a compliance standpoint. That's now going to be reconciliation in SAM Pro, so that's going to be disabled. The auto match functionality that attempted to match a discovery model to a software model, that job is going to be deactivated. It's a new function in SAM Pro. The navigation menu for software asset management is deactivated and it's going to be renamed. And legacy business rules applied to discovery models will also be disabled. Now, another thing that needs to be considered is the actual software install data that you were tracking in ITSM SAM. So a lot of you, if you're in ITSM SAM, will notice that you were tracking your software installs in the software packages table, which is extended from the software instance table. The SAM Pro really sits on top of the software install table. So if there are software installs that you want to have tracked in SAM Pro from the legacy software instance table, there is a feature to migrate the software installs from SeemDB software instance to the SeemDB software install table so that they can be utilized by SAM Pro. That being said, a lot of times the data that gets moved from software instance and software install doesn't really get used in the software install table once you move over to SAM Pro. So, unless there's a real business use case for moving those software installs over into the software install table, I would recommend populating your software install with clean discovery data from a Service Graph connector or ITOM discovery. But again, if there is software install data that is vital that we want to track in the software install table, this is what we would do. Now, things that we want to consider if you're an ITSM SAM and you had customizations on the software license table, the software allocation table, or the software model table, right? This may impact the upgrade to these tables when you move over to SAM Pro, and they will need to be remediated via the upgrade history. So for your admins, I'm pretty sure you know of this already, but this is where we would go to our upgrade history and try to identify those skip changes to remediate any of those skip upgrades due to any customizations in ITS and SAM. Okay, so now that we've migrated our ITS and SAM, let's talk about activating the publisher packs. All right, so publisher packs are very important because they provide additional functionality and capabilities when it comes to software compliance for these tier one publishers, right? So when we look at a software asset management program, the majority of the cost are coming from a few publishers, right? Your Microsofts, your Oracles, your IBMs, your VMwares, your Citrix, SAP, Adobe, et cetera, et cetera. What the publisher pack is going to do is it's going to make sure that the appropriate license metrics, those complex license metrics that are used to get a compliance position for these softwares are in place. They're going to make sure that the architecture is in place to do things around giving you optimization analytics to better utilize these softwares in SAM Pro. How do we get Publisher Pack? So when installing SAM Pro, you do have an option to install a plugin known as the Software Asset Management Master plugin. If you install the Master plugin, all of your publisher packs are going to be installed along with SAM Pro. If you don't do SAM Master, you may need to install these plugins on an individual basis. I did list the name of the plugins to the right. For those of you who are just getting started and you've activated SAM and hey, I'm not sure if I activated the plugins, no problem. Just take this plugin list that I have here and just do a check to make sure that they are present. But definitely recommend having these in place. All right, so we have the publisher packs installed. Let's talk about the content library portal. This is a newer feature, a fantastic feature. So this is obtained via the ServiceNow store. And what this is going to allow is it's going to allow a search feature within your workspace to look for any hardware or software content, such as part numbers or lifecycle information for the software or hardware that we have in our content libraries. Some of this can be used to inform purchasing decisions. If we see life cycle dates that doesn't really coincide to your IT strategy, then maybe you may not make the purchase, or if we just want to know, hey, do we have the automation in place for the software that we're purchasing? The content library portal can be a very powerful resource. So as I mentioned, this is something that you would access via the workspace. At the very bottom of the workspace, you would see the content lookup, and then this is where you can search our content libraries for product names for software, or model IDs for hardware, or part numbers. All right. So let's talk about the workspace. So newer installs of SAM Pro, Workspace is going to automatically be installed. But for those of you who may be on an older version of SAM Pro, you may have to install the Workspace. To obtain the Workspace, it's going to be a similar process to getting the SAM Pro plugin. It's going to require somebody with support credentials. They are going to go to the support portal, activate the plugin. They're going to select their target instance, activate the software asset workspace, as well as a time window for it to be installed. But once it is installed, it's a very, very powerful tool. A software asset workspace is fantastic because what it does is it makes the operations of software asset management, much more accessible. And it does that by making sure those key IT cost management metrics are brought to the forefront to help communicate value for software asset management. It brings up to the front those key alerts that the software asset manager or software asset management staff need to be aware of to ensure that the installation is healthy, and that content is up to date, or that actions are taken to remediate any failures in SAM Pro. So it makes those operations very, very accessible. In addition to that, it provides an updated version of the original license workbench. So with the new license workbench seen here on the right side, it's going to be more of a percent-based compliance. So 100% compliant versus 17% compliant versus 0% compliant for a specific product. But more than that, as you drill down into these products, you're going to be given more product enablement features than you had in the original license workbench. And what I mean by that is, hey, if I'm out of compliance, this new view is going to show you why you're out of compliance. Hey, do I have software models that are missing discovery maps? Do I have software models that are missing entitlements? Do I have a situation to whereas these specific installations aren't being licensed because, well, I don't have active maintenance on the entitlement. Maybe I didn't transcript or transcribe my software assurance, right? Those are the types of information that you can get as you drill down into this newer look for the license workbench. And from a SaaS perspective, giving you information around active users, last meaningful activity, all the information that you need to optimize the use of your software. So definitely recommend, if you are on an older version of SAM Pro, get in there, get the software asset workspace. It'll definitely boost your a comfort level with providing value in software asset management. Okay. And finally, let's talk about the ITAM health check. Again, this is a newer feature of SAM Pro, and another one that I think is absolutely fantastic. Now, if you are on an older version of SAM Pro, again, you may need to do the install of the ITAM health check. This can be obtained via the ServiceNow store. And what this is going to provide you with is an application that does a series of checks to detect any data gaps or configuration gaps, and in some cases, any process gaps that may be impeding your success with SAM Pro. So once it's installed, if you look at the success portal, in the workspace, there's going to be a tab for health check, and you're going to see a series of results. You're going to see a health check score. You're going to see open issues per suite, and I'll talk about suites here in a moment. And also you'll see health check issues per category. So, for instance, we have discovery. Do we have a situation to whereas a CI that has software installed on it is missing attributes that are vital to the reconciliation process? Do we have CIs that are missing relationships that are vital to getting the reconciliation process? Do we have entitlements that may be missing things like software assurance or any other key values that prevents reconciliation from working? Do we have software models missing key values like discovery maps, et cetera, et cetera? Well, what these are going to do is they are going to list all of the findings in these categories, and within those findings, you're going to be given prescriptive steps that you can take to remediate those issues. And in fact, a lot of cases, there's going to be links or hyperlinks to documents to help you chase down the various findings that are caught by the ITAM health check. I mentioned suites a little earlier. We do have health checks that, focus on suites. Here we see Windows Server and SQL Server, but we also have Oracle as well. So, if we're having issues with getting a compliance position specifically on our Oracle and SQL Server and a DB server, which are some of your more expensive softwares, these are going to show you findings that are specific to getting a compliance position for those more expensive products. So this is a very, very powerful self-enablement tool that me and my fellow Rangers always recommend our customers install and monitor, because in many ways, this does what we do. A lot of times we will get into a customer's instance and we'll be looking in these domains. We'll be looking at your entitlements and your software models and your software installs, trying to suss out issues or data gaps to help customers come to success. This is a way to kind of manage that process as you need to. Um, you do have, I believe, the scheduled job to do your health check kicks off weekly, but you can also execute these at will. Okay, so we've installed software asset management. Congratulations. Those are the main steps in making sure that we have the plugins in place needed to perform software asset management tasks. Now let's talk a little bit about configuration. Okay, so the first thing that I would want customers to look at is the content jobs. So, if we have the permissions, I would have the customer navigate to system definition to their scheduled jobs, and I would want them to look at the scheduled jobs where the application is software asset management. They do have the ability to just execute those jobs right there, so we can begin the population of the content tables. The reason why we put this step here is because normally content downloads happen on a weekly schedule. So depending on when you activate SAM Pro, you may have to wait, 6, 7 days before the content jobs execute. This is a way to just have them execute immediately to populate those tables. Um, Having content in place right away is fantastic, because content is responsible for, doing functions like getting lifecycle data for your software, or even the normalization process for your software. If you're already discovering a software, it's a way to just have those content mappings right there and ready to go. Once you've executed those jobs, you can navigate to the workspace under software asset analytics, and you'll be looking at the normalization and content section. Halfway down the screen, you'll see Central Data Service download status. This is where it's going to show you um, where you are as far as your current content mapping. So if we've executed those jobs, you should see that your current count and your expected count match, right? So in this case, I currently have 20 records for cloud host configuration. And I expect to have 20 counts, because that's how many records that our ITAM content team has in the library. So, and this is also a good page to monitor steady state, because we've seen tickets where we've gone to the screen and a customer may be behind. Their current count may be behind by 5, 6, some in some cases tens of thousands of mapping. So we would have to execute those jobs or see what's going on. So this is another page that we want to make sure we're paying attention to as far as steady state operations. All right, so we have our content in place. Let's talk about content service setup. And I want to sit here for just a moment. So um, content service setup, this feature is meant to help SAM Pro increase its software recognition ratio, right? We want to be able to recognize as many of your software products as possible. And the way content services works is you would click on this hyperlink and you would opt into content. And in doing so, you would activate, in this case, all 6 of the categories of the content service setup, and you are opted into content. So what does it actually mean to opt into content, and what does it mean by increasing software recognition ratios? Okay, so if you've opted into content, what that means is, so customers, they have their own instances, right? They have their local software libraries and their own normalization rates. If there's any unrecognized data, so any unrecognized discovery maps or custom D maps or match not found software or partially normalized software, right? Anything that's unrecognized is going to be reverse fed to the content services team over here to the right. The content services team is going to do their research and investigations, and then incorporate new mappings into the content library that the rest of the customer base can then take advantage of in their weekly content download. Now, a couple of things that I want to make clear about opting into content. Opting into content, all that does is it's really responsible for the bottom portion of this process, shuttling unrecognized software data to the content service team. Whether you opt into content or not, you're always going to get this download of curated content from the content library. That is one misconception that I wanted to make sure that we were clear on. And the second common question that we get about content is, hey, Ben, we have a lot of first party or proprietary software in our organization, and we don't want any of that data reverse fed to the content service team. And in some cases, these customers would just choose not to opt into content. I will say that you do have the option to, on a product by product basis, click a checkbox on your target products to exclude them from reverse feeding back to the content service team. So that way, you can enable content services, and then you can select which software products you don't want to have reverse fed while taking advantage of content services for your other third-party software. So there is a way around that. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. Okay, so we've done content services. Let's talk about normalization data service. And we're going to spend a little time here because I know that there's some confusion as to whether or not normalization data services is something that's exclusive to asset management. And it's not. The answer is it's not. Normalization data services is a platform feature. It's responsible for standardizing the values in the core company table. So let's break that down for just a moment. Let's say that we have discovery. It's discovered a device, and the manufacturer for that device is Dell. Well, a core company record can be created from that discovery process. Let's say that we have a procurement system that's feeding purchase information into ServiceNow, and they have Dell Inc. Well, that procurement system has the capability of creating a core company record called Dell Inc., right? And then let's say that we have a member of the procurement team or the vendor management team, and they're manually creating core company records, and they call it Dell Inc., all caps. Well, in this case, we have 3 different variations, right, of Dell, one from discovery, one from the purchasing system, and one from a user. The purpose of normalization data services is to create what's called a canonical value of Dell so that all 3 of those variations of Dell can map to one standard variation of Dell that's going to be utilized across the platform. So that way, if we're going to refer to a manufacturer on, I don't know, an incident ticket, right? There's only going to be one option for Dell to be chosen from a manufacturer standpoint. So that's all we're doing. We are providing some standardization, some business continuity to the core company records. That's what NDS is for. It's a platform feature, not exclusive to software asset management. So why are we bringing it up here? Well, the reason why we're bringing it up here is because there is a step in normalization data services that is exclusive to software asset management, right? So, now that we've gone through the step and I've showed you how to execute those jobs to bringing your ITAM content, which includes your publisher mappings. We can actually go into normalization data service and kick off the normalized software asset management step. And what that's going to do is normalize the publisher information on your software asset management tables. Once we've done this step, moving forward, your normalization jobs from your scheduled jobs are going to take care of making sure that your SAM Pro information is normalized. Okay. Moving on to configure properties. So this is this is a big one because there are many properties, but what for the purposes of this presentation, I want to talk about this thematically. So software asset management properties thematically is meant to control behaviors around reconciliation, right? So for instance, um, you know, when I run reconciliation, I want the results to group compliance by department or cost center. I want the reconciliation process to create software models for me. I want reconciliation to factor in custom license metrics. I want reconciliation to factor in host affinity for Oracle DB server, right? Thematically, it's all around behaviors for reconciliation. So what I will say here is we don't have a prescriptive, hey, enable this property or enable that property because, hey, you may have a grouping use case that another organization doesn't have that same grouping use case. But I will say that for those reconciliation use cases, whether I'm using VMware's distributed resource scheduler because I have host affinity, or if I have grouping use cases for reconciliation, make sure you would come to the software asset management properties to toggle on or off those reconciliation properties that is fit for purpose for your organization. I also left a hyperlink to all of the software asset management properties so you have a firm understanding of what these properties are and more importantly, what these properties do. So I would encourage you to take a look at that list. All right. Set up SAM roles. So I'm not going to dive into this too much because, again, the purpose of this conversation is around the installation and the setup for software asset management. I think roles is something that we'll get more into in the second event, but I will say know what those roles are. So your SAM admin, your SAM user, your SAM developer, your SAM integrator, and your SAM spin import. And also just understand who is going to be doing what within your organization. So here's a little matrix of each of the roles, the description of what they do, and also the roles that they contain, right? I know sometimes we get a lot of statements around, oh, the software admin has assets, so they can touch all asset tables. Well, yeah, so factor that in to your strategy. So, but yeah, just make sure that we know who and that you are assigning roles to the right folks. All right. We have now installed and configured software asset management. That is all there is to it to getting yourself up and running. We can now start playing the game. But before we do so, an important message on the CMDB. All right, ServiceNow SAM has a high dependency on the CMDB. Full stop. That is that is just the case. Um, so I can tell you in product success, um, when we get assigned cases with customers having issues with software asset management, I would say more often than not, and I would venture to say 80 to 90% of the issues that we see with customers reside in the CMDB. Uh, Ben, I have this product and I have licenses for it, but for some reason the reconciliation process isn't utilizing my rights, right? You know, the questions I ask, well, okay, do we see a host? Does that host have CPUs and cores transcribed? Does it have an operating system? Uh, does that, is it a virtual server? Is the relationship between the virtual server and the physical host intact? Is the relationship between the physical host and the cluster intact? Do you have host affinity rules for this virtual server, right? Um, if these bits of information are missing, it's going to skew and in some cases not even give you results in reconciliation. So, you know, a lot of folks think that software asset management, you know, once I can see my installed software, I'm good. No, that's not the case. Seeing your installed software is only the beginning of the story. We have to understand the markers of the CIs that are hosting that software, and we need to understand their relationships in order for SAM Pro to function properly. So what are some of those common SAM impacting issues that we see in the CMDB? We see missing CIs, we see software installs, but we can't even see the CI that it's installed on. Duplicate CIs, another big one. Stale CIs, another big one. Missing attributes. I mentioned, hey, is the CPU there? Is the course per CPU there? Is the operating system there? Right? Those are attributes that are needed in the reconciliation process. Missing relationships, right? We talked about that relationship between the VM to the physical host to the cluster, right? Those are relationships that are vital in a lot of your expensive softwares. Install status customizations. That's a big one, right? Users who create a custom install status for retired, for instance. The retired install status has bearing on software install records in SAM Pro because there's a scheduled job to remove software on retired CIs. Well, if you customize the retired install status on your CI, then that job is going to miss removing those software installs for those CIs. So yes, install status customizations can impact your SAM implementation and behavior. So now that we talked about the CMDB, I think that brings us neatly into populating software installs, right? So I wanted to bring this screen up because we want to talk about our recommendations for populating your software install table. First, we want to look at your data center software. So for your data center software, we want a horizontal-based discovery. We need something that's going to see not only the installs and the hosts that have those installs, but the relationships of those hosts. We recommend ServiceNow Discovery as your source here because in addition to be able to do all the horizontal discovery work, it also has the patterns necessary to make sure that the relationships are in the right place so that reconciliation can look at those tables, get the values that it needs to get a compliance position for that more complex software. For our end user compute devices or our desktops, right, we recommend SCCM. The reason for that is because right now, SCCM satisfies all of the use cases for licensing desktop software in SAM Pro. So those are our two recommendations for populating your software install table when we are starting out. And speaking of SCCM, I did want to bring up this screen for us as well. This is a matrix. Product management did a fantastic job of putting this together, and it kind of highlights the point that I was making in the previous slide. So what this matrix is it's comparing all of the service graph connectors that we have right now, or the big ones that we have right now, and how well they satisfy the use cases in SAM Pro. I left the link down here as well for you all. And what we can see, as I was saying, SCCM, ITOM, Agent Client Collector, SG they're doing a fantastic job. They are taking care of the lion's share of the requirements for SAM Pro. And you can see with SG SCCM, it goes even further with its ability to work with client software distribution. Once we start getting over into the Tanium, the SG Intune, the SG VMware Workspace One, we can see that there's some gaps in those tools' ability to grab some of those vital data points that SAM Pro is going to use. So, again, in some cases that me and the team work, we see customers with issues around for some reason our normalization rate is really low. We have a sub 50% normalization rate, and we can't figure out why. How come? Why can't we normalize something as simple as this product or that product? And one of the first places that we often look is, well, what is the discovery source bringing that software install record in? And does that discovery source have any known gaps in the data that it's bringing back? So, with SG VMware Workspace One, it has issues bringing back publisher information, right? Normalization means that we're able to standardize the publisher product and version of a piece of software. If your discovery tool can't bring back a publisher, then it is going to impact your normalization rate, right? So bringing this up for you guys to have and for you guys to discuss with your teams in case you have any of these tools in your environment. You can make informed decisions as to which one of these you want populating your software install table. Okay, so populating software installs, just some tips to take with you guys here. All right, so tip number one, minimize the amount of discovery sources feeding your software install table to just what is necessary to capture your target data. So for instance, I've seen customers with Workspace One, and Tanium, and SG SCCM all populating their software install table. And the question is, well, is there a reason why we have all three of these sources bringing in software install data into your table? And if there is, great, keep going. But if the answer is, well, there isn't really a reason, we've kind of had it, but now all of them are doing it. If one discovery source can satisfy all of your use cases, then use one discovery source. Don't use three when you can use one. Let's keep the data as digestible as possible. Too many cooks, right? Is what we want to avoid. This is a common issue that we see. Another tip. So for those of you who've been with us or who may have been in SAM Pro when SCCM v2012 and SCCM v2016 were the plugins used to do your SCCM imports into the software install table. Now we've moved over to the service graph connector. We've seen a lot of circumstances where the customer has migrated over to SG SCCM, but has forgot to turn off the legacy SCCM v2012 plugin. So, just real brief, the reason why we moved from the legacy SCCM plugins was because, there was an update and the remove software import wasn't happening anymore for V2012 and V2016. So it resulted in these software install tables that were bloated. So we moved over to SGSCCM, and now we're getting that remove software import. If we fail to shut off those legacy SCCM plugins, you're still going to run into that bloated a software install issue. So would recommend that, hey, once we have SCCM up and running, just go back, just check, make sure the legacies are now turned off. And kind of in the same vein, if we're migrating from the legacy SCCM plugins to SCCM plugins, we recommend doing a clean import. If you have the appetite for it, and if if it's not going to throw you off too much, we would definitely recommend, hey, try purging your software install table, get SCCM up and running, and just do a clean import. So we can just make sure that any old data, any of that data that should have been a part of that remove software import is gone, and we're only populating software installs that actually exist. Keep iTime discovery up to date, plain and simple. We, with new updates, new patterns, we see customers all the time, right? With iTime discovery massively out of date. Make sure we keep those up to date so that we are capturing the appropriate bits of information that we need. And finally, kind of harkening back to that previous slide, ensure that whatever discovery source that you have, make sure of its compatibility with SAM Pro. All right, so left us a few links. We talked about requesting software asset management professional plugins. I gave you some screenshots of where you should go. These are actual videos. So these are hyperlinked to our Ask a Ranger series on YouTube. So if you just want to see step-by-step guidance, you can follow Randy or Sean along in their videos, executing the same steps that I talked about in today's session. And over on the right, I have some ServiceNow docs. I mentioned, hey, the properties and how they impact reconciliation, content services, migrating software asset management, and the health check and the workspace. Here's some docs for you and some literature for you to peruse as you are beginning your journey. So I hope that this was informative. We are just about at the top of the hour. We have a few moments to address some questions, but I hope that this was informative. This should have you in a position to where, as we have SAM Pro activated, we are ready to start plotting our course for success. Start talking about that crawl, walk, run, which is going to be the theme of part 2 of this series when we come back in November.